So, on today's podcast, we're talking about admirational rivals and the way worthy rivals can actually bring out the best in us and others. So stay tuned to learn more.
Welcome back to the Thermostat with Jason Barger. If you're currently on a commute, a walk, or just a micro break in your day, glad you're making time to step back, to think, and to reflect on the next steps on your journey. I've never been more convinced the best leaders and team cultures in the world are the ones that make time to step back, breathe in good oxygen, and calibrate their thermostat. I hope today's conversation leaves you feeling grounded and inspired. Now let's dive into today's topic to engage our minds and hearts in order to authentically lead and create compelling cultures wherever we are in the world.
Hey everyone, it's Jason, and welcome back to the Thermostat Podcast. Wherever you are and however you're coming to the podcast today, welcome in. So glad you are here. We're in Season 8. Over 250 episodes now, so much great stuff that's out there. If you are new to the podcast, welcome in, and hope you'll go back, check out so many great conversations with other thought leaders that have joined me for some great conversations on this pod, as well as just Google, my name and the Thermostat with Jason Barger, and any topic that you're thinking around leadership and culture, and you're going to find a whole lot of great stuff out there. So I hope you'll go back and do that. For those of you that have been here from the beginning or been some of the OGs of this podcast, so glad this continues to add value to your life and your work. My commitment to listeners is that I want this to be a place for you to step back, for you to think, and hopefully have some good oxygen breathed into you so you can think about the temperature that you're trying to set in your life and your work. Before we get into today's topic, if you do me the quick favor, if you'll take a minute to rate the podcast, 5 stars, of course, on whatever platform you're using, that is super helpful for other people to find the podcast, is just to hit that, smash that 5-star button. And then also, if you'll leave an authentic review in your own words about the podcast, what resonates with you? Why is this, meaningful or important in a very noisy, negative world? Whatever that is for you, that helps people find it. And then obviously, every time you share the podcast, whether that's on social media or share it, hey, here's an episode across the team or your friends or what colleagues, and say, hey, let's give this a listen, and then let's talk about what does this mean for us, our team, our culture. Those are ways in which the podcast continues to get shared and these messages amplified further in the world. So thanks to everybody that takes a moment to do that. Rivalries are everywhere in our world. In fact, we celebrate them and glorify them in the world of sports, of course. We love the rivalries that are so rich with history and tradition and angst and just tension between them. You think about the New York Yankees versus the Boston Red Sox, the Los Angeles Lakers versus the Boston Celtics, Texas versus Oklahoma, Duke versus North Carolina, Manchester United and Liverpool, and of course, where I'm from, the biggest of them all, Ohio State versus Michigan, or that team up north. Rivalries are everywhere in our world. They begin on the playgrounds between kids and grow between friends and schools and states and even countries. And in business, rivals and competitors are around every corner. Microsoft and Apple, McDonald's and Wendy's, Coke versus Pepsi. Rivalries can often be intense. They can often be fueled by a dislike or even a hatred in some sense. Sometimes they're competing ideologies or approaches or just geography. However, some rivalries can actually bring out the best in us and others. In fact, in some ways, our admiration for our rivals may help us all. I'll explain more. So, on today's podcast, we're talking about admirational rivals and the way worthy rivals can actually bring out the best in us and others. So stay tuned to learn more. Let's pause, take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Many teams and organizations right now are realizing that they need to do both. They need to engage the minds and hearts of their people in person, where everyone in the room can experience the energy of congregating together and find clarity for the road ahead. And they also need to continue to find ways to engage the minds and hearts of their people virtually with those who are working remotely or at a distance. So, if you are in the process of planning your next team meeting, company all-hands event, conference or culture summit, and are looking for support with a powerful keynote speech, facilitated team conversations that are the currency for change, or deeper development on leadership mindset and an intentional strategy for the culture you're trying to create, I hope you'll contact us at jasonvbarger.com, jasonvbarger.com. It is my privilege and our honor to partner with great people to provide support in these areas. We want to breathe oxygen into your leaders and throughout your organization so you can set the temperature you want for your culture. We look forward to connecting with you soon. I hope you'll contact us at jasonvbarger.com, jasonvbarger.com. It is my privilege and our honor to partner with great people to provide support in these areas. We want to breathe oxygen into your leaders and throughout your organization so you can set the temperature you want for your culture. We look forward to connecting with you soon.
Rivalries can be filled with angst, intensity, and even hatred. However, some rivalries, when looked at from another angle of vision, we can actually look at them with admiration. When we admire something, we have an opportunity to learn from it and perhaps help us get better. Author Simon Sinek, in his book The Infinite Game, which I enjoyed very much, refers to this as what he calls a worthy rival. A worthy rival is another player in your game worthy of comparison. So whatever you think your game is, another person or another organization, another team that's worthy of comparison. We don't need to admire everything about them, but we simply acknowledge that they have strengths and abilities from which to learn a thing or two. Simon uses Adam Grant, another author and speaker, as his example, who's, Adam is a prolific author, speaker, researcher, and Simon talks very specifically about he used to have some great insecurity about Adam. And then until they actually met and confronted that their kind of mutual admiration for each other, he was always insecure about Adam. But then when they realized that they both had something to learn from each other, that maybe they were more like worthy rivals rather than, true, angst and hatred kind of rivals. And so as we get to the, into this podcast, that as I do with every podcast, I'll leave you with some questions at the end of this thing, like I always do. So that, I'll give you, just to plant the seeds for what is coming, is to consider, who are your admirational rivals? Who are they in your business? Who are they in your work life? Who are they just in your life in general? And I've thought about this question in my own life and work because this idea challenged me at first. Because I really have never thought of other people who write books or speak or consult with organizations on developing people and leaders and cultures like I do. I've never really thought of them as actual rivals to me. I've just never spent any time thinking about it that way. And that's just me, but I traditionally just have never spent much time thinking about or stewing over about like who are my rivals or my competitors. Not because there are those that might exist in the world that do similar things than I do. There are certainly people out there. And by the way, there's many people that do this kind of work very, very well, by the way. But I just haven't focused on them being my rivals. I figure that there is room for all of us, and I will, that I'll be a good, authentic fit for some companies and organizations, and others will be for others. That it doesn't necessarily, I just haven't thought about them as rivals or competitors. However, I do love this idea that my spin on this kind of worthy rivals is this idea of kind of admirational rivals, because I've come to appreciate people who are in a similar workspace as I am, although they don't always have to be. There's things to be learned from everybody. But people that are in a similar workspace, but bring a different flavor, a different approach or skill set than I do. And in the last few years, I've become more aware of and intentionally sought out opportunities to collaborate or learn from other people in this industry that do things, that I admire. And the spirit of this is that none of us are a finished product. We all are works in progress. And there are plenty of people that I can learn from, and also those that I could be helpful to along the way. So Admirational Rivals help elevate everyone. They help us assess ourselves, our approach, our values, our alignment, our operations, and help us continue to identify ways to be more of the person that we hope to be, not trying to be somebody else, but help us learn more about ourselves and our approach, our uniqueness, so that we can continue to become more of who we're supposed to be, not copycats of somebody else, but admiring them from a distance, learning from them. But then ultimately, it's about us being more fully the person that we're here to be. So not only in business, but there are many examples of this, in our friendships, and certainly looking and learning from other couples or spouses or parents or friends, again, people who help us continue to reframe our approach to whatever that may be, our approach as a parent, our approach as a spouse, our approach as a friend, our approach to our work, to our team, our association with how we work and approach our life. There are people who help us continue to reframe our approach and inspire us to try to be a better version of ourselves in the world. So, as always, I want to leave some questions with you to ponder as you're thinking about this idea of admirational rivals. What are the attributes of someone who is an admirational rival of yours? What are the attributes of somebody that would fit into this kind of admirational rival for you? Who do you identify as an admirational rival in your career or in your life? And what is to be learned from them, and what next step might you take to develop? I hope today's episode got you thinking into some good ways. Obviously, if there's more information or things that feedback you have for us, info@jasonvbarger.com. Share that with us, and we're going to continue to develop content that hopefully meets you where you are and stimulates your thinking and get you thinking in this way. I hope you'll go back again, check out old episodes. I hope you'll rate, review, share all of the stuff that we talked about earlier. And just remember that each of us, we all breathe energy into our habits every single day. We breathe into our mindsets. We take time to think about how is it we want to approach things, and how do we want to show up for the people around us. And those positive habits help us breathe in good oxygen so that we can share good oxygen with each other. Calibrating our own personal thermostat takes time to step back and think. And then we start to recognize that we have an opportunity to set a temperature for the people around us and to be that person that we strive to be. So I hope you'll keep tuning in. We've got a lot of great stuff coming up in the future podcasts, and I hope it meets you where you are as you continue to think about what does it mean to be an authentic leader in the world and create compelling cultures with the people around you. Because remember, the best leaders, teams, and cultures on the planet stimulate progress by recalibrating their thermostats together. So step back, remember, be a thermostat, and breathe good oxygen.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast, and I hope the messages and questions stimulate positive change along your path. As always, if these messages resonate with you and add value to your life, I hope you'll help amplify them throughout the world. Please rate, comment, and share on whatever podcast or social media platform you're using, and share this podcast with the people in your life or work who should be part of these conversations. That way, this spirit does, in fact, spread. If these messages or developing leaders and culture would be helpful to you and your organization, please contact us at jasonvbarger.com, jasonvbarger.com. And remember, we are all ambassadors for the culture we want to create in our life and work. We have to own the vision we want to be a part of. The future of leadership is you, is me, is us. Be a thermostat.